Hi, Mom.
Hi, Jackie.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day to you, too,
And happy Mother's Day to all of you.
in whatever form that takes.
Yes, yes. So this is a special episode. I am in Madison with Sally to celebrate creativity, really.
It is. It is creativity, and this is a surprise. We didn't expect that you'd be here on Mother's Day.
No, we did
And
not.
so this is wonderful. And we've been just, as we do when we get together, it's just been a spontaneously unfolding, beautiful morning, afternoon, and we thought we'd pop on to share some of our creative thoughts and what we've been up to and how we came to be.
Thanks for that. So if you're new here, this is just a little, as Amy Pelko says, a little blather.
A little blather. Oh,
Yes.
Amy.
And I would like to start with the poem. If you've been around for a while, I've read this poem many times. I'm going to introduce a color before I read the poem, and it is, it's this blue right in here. This,
Beautiful.
and I don't know if it, yeah, there it is.
There it is.
Yeah, there it's showing up. I was in Venice with my sister, 25, 30 years ago, and they happened to have a Titian exhibit. And I saw, like, all over the city were images of Titian's Marys, and she always had this blue. And the blue that Mary wears to me is it's not the color of the sky, it's the color, to me, it's like the color of the soul and of motherhood.
That's beautiful.
And generosity.
Is it called Madonna blue? Is that?
Could be, I don't know.
Okay.
But I always think of that blue. And this poem is a poem to John O'Donoghue's mother, and it has, I'm just going to say, I would dream in that blue. I find that blue so comforting. It's so, it just to me is about grace and blessings and whatnot. Beannacht is the poem. It goes, on the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays and the curragh of thought and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life.
Oh, that's beautiful. And this he wrote to his mother?
Yeah.
Oh, what a lovely.
And I would just say, like, one of the blessings that I've been feeling so much lately is obviously I don't live here with you anymore, and I'm in a new place, and sometimes I can be lonely, and I will go out for my walks, and I will be full of not only just the transition, but everything that's going on in the world right now. And I'll go out and I will just look up, and there will be these majestic, huge eagles and pelicans and raptors just soaring and floating and swooping. And it is as if they're coming to me to give me encouragement and to remind me of things bigger than myself.
Right.
And so I feel like the blessings of the birds so much in the spring. Is one of the blessings. What is a blessing that you're finding right now?
Oh, I am finding the renewal, the buds opening, the every day you go out, and if you go out with eyes open, your senses open, it's unfolding every day, more and more and more. The greens are getting deeper. There's a cycle. The flowers, early blooms are gone. The crab tree that we have out front decided that this was the year to be magnificent, and it stayed for your visit.
Yes. So I will definitely spend like time before there are bugs. Like tonight seems like a perfect night to light candles and sit under the crab and let the petals drop. So we hope that you are celebrating spring and family and, and if not celebrating them in like a euphoric way, you're remembering them with some joy and pleasure.
And I don't know why it came across my mind, but I realized since my youngest grandson was just recently in New Zealand, to realize, stepping outside of yourself and going, New Zealand is in fall. The leaves have changed colors. I find that just so incredible, the scope and the splendor of our planet. So those of you that we love in that hemisphere, happy fall, and
Right. We wanted to hop on today and talk about Sally's gallery night briefly. There's an extended video that we did last time I visited, which was all about the art.
And I'm feeling excited because I've been trying to put in words what these paintings and what this particular body of work signifies for me. Because in my brain that wants to explain too much.
Not too much.
No, what I was doing was too much. Okay. I realized I was going back years and thinking, in order for you to understand these paintings, you need to know my whole story. Well, it's not like that, because what you do when you make art is it's like I'm bringing all that story, but what I realized is that that phrase that I keep hearing, I have a couple of them this past year, was, if not now, when? And that magical phrase came into my being last year when I was 74, turning 75 in that June. I was kind of like, well, if I'm gonna, I want to learn how to do watercolor, and if I don't do it now, my goodness, how many more times will I have to do it? And so I just immersed myself in the pure joy of childlike newness to a new art form. And then what I wanted to say was what happened in that newness of like losing yourself in the day. It's incredible bliss was that I stacked up, papers of exuberant art. And then what happened was the eureka that was so exciting to me was, oh my goodness, these papers, what am I going to do with them? They're like fabric. They're like whole quilts. And what if, and that's the other magical question that, all of you that create, I know you have this question in your mind when you're at the machine or when you're at your needles and you're, and you're trying to decide what's my next story. What if and then that, however, and you're all up, like it's like a magic, it's alchemy. It just goes, it's like you and your higher creative power out there, and what if I do this? And so we're all given, something to create. It doesn't really matter what it is. But for me, it was like, wow, I have been a fabric artist for decades and decades. I have made quilts. I have done it.
My whole life.
Your whole,
it was either thread or fabric.
It was thread or fabric. I have been creating these things forever. And so it was just kind of this eureka moment of recognizing, oh, my watercolor papers are like whole cloth fabric. And what I love is cutting them up in a geometric form. I love the geometry of quilting, but I like it to be the geometry of freeform.
Can you pause for a second? Because I think that same thing's happening to you, where you have a flood inside of you to get out. And you were saying you were kind of at the big overview of what if, and if not now, when. You said
those were the two things. And so I was just taken by this. So I'm not quite sure. Yes, I have to stop, pause, take a breath, and just go, I'm so excited about this week's show. Because this is the first,
and let yourself be fully excited like a child. Like it's
It's a party.
We've been doing this together for such a long time. These are your bits of watercolor, and then you cut them
into 2-inch squares, very familiar. That's a very quilterly thing.
Down.
And that was the magic, because I usually do hand quilting, but this was taking this lovely 12-inch piece of watercolor paper, putting the square down, and because I'd start with just one square in the corner, and I had this format of, this is not tipped the right way, but having the circle be in, you can see where my signature is. The circles are always in the same places to orient.
Oh, this circle?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they're all like that. So there's always a circle, because I had cut up just, before I got into this whole thing, because I never really think about where I'm going until I get there. I mean, that's...
You were in the process.
I don't plan out. I get caught up in the spontaneous creation. And so the circles I
get caught up.
I do.
Like, that's the best high there is, right?
Yes, it is. And so for some odd reason, I had cut all these squares, and we're talking like a stack of papers like this. So it's a lot of, and that in itself, the music's on and I'm just cutting. I decided to just cut some circles. And so then I had the circles, and then I thought, well, I'm going to put that in as an orient, as a space holder. So what happened is that after making all this like art last year, the world hit like the bottom fell, just all kinds of horrible things have happened, and we don't need to, challenges, and just, does this, getting to be 75 and just the world being the way it was just so sad and so upsetting to me. And I wasn't quite sure how I was going to continue on with my creative art. But I found when I took the blank page of paper and I put the colorful square on it, and I had an idea of color composition, each one is different. You can put another one up and see how that, so I'm just working with what I have. So, they're all, so I don't really ponder a great deal other than just color sense and picking up color, line, all the, those crazy, what they call the elements of design, which is scale and line and texture and color and those principles, and they become the language of making these things without really thinking about it. So there is something to that. I don't just dip my hand in and do it.
It's not random. No, that's obvious.
Yeah, but anyway, when I started doing the stitching on the sewing machine, it was like
this one.
It was because I'm using my variegated threads that I've saved. This one is very subtly variegated, but I went, I had tons and tons of threads, and this takes a lot of thread. But as soon as I started this pattern of getting them where they were all down, and then the going back and making sure that they were well placed, was the most soothing to my soul. I think it's kind of like when you're doing a beautiful straight part of your knitting, and you don't have to think about it so much. It just like It's so soothing. And it just, I think I've done probably close to 75 or 100 of these. You know, I just kept ordering more of these. They're not that expensive, more of these sheets of paper. And I just kept doing it because what I found is in the act of doing it, I could have a reprieve, a needed reprieve for healthy, meditative art. And
okay, so that feeling of being in the flow, having something, deconstructing something, letting it fall apart and making something new again. Like that was a feeling.
Yeah, because that is how I have created my quilts.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
That's always how you did it.
I remember 20 years ago discovering that there's something about taking even a finished quilt and cutting it up and putting it back together again.
That feels like such a metaphor for life, like the fact that we are allowed to have flaws and make mistakes and have experiences and learn from them and revise and rethink and reflect. And
you know, and what it does is the pieces, when they go back together again, they play with each other differently than when they were in the whole quilt. So sometimes a painting looks absolutely perfectly wonderful. It's telling you what you want, you like it. I like the way the circles swirl or whatever. But some of the paintings, we're just learning things. And when I cut them up and I put them back into, when you put them back together again, they become more because they play off of each other. The lines go in. They come kind of like a topography where there's, you know, it gets more mystery and more, I don't know how to explain it other than the fact that it's more interesting and more vital than any of the things were by themselves.
do you think, this is a strange question. I love this one. Gosh, it's so gorgeous. And you have cut up one with words in it.
Yeah, I do have some of them.
Like
words
this one
in them.
says, I'm the old woman I believe in. Love is joy. I can see it say. Oh my gosh, I love this one, Mom. It's so clear to me, this is a strange question, but that you've had such joy in making these. Is it possible that the joy can be contained in it and passed on to others? Like, can you give that joy out?
That's what I'm hoping. That is really, because I realize that none of this makes any sense at all. Art in and of itself, if it's not shared, and I don't know how, we're all part of the larger creative force. And and the only thing that I have to say at this time in my life is that I had my finger on the pulse of the flow when I was recovering from my lymphoma, and I was doing the 100-day gratitude journal on Instagram every day. I have it in my highlights if you ever want to go and look at those. It meant so much to me, but what even more than that was all the people that would respond and say, I'm going through this in my life. What you had to say got me up and got me dressed today. There's just such a giving and back and forth because it was a particularly difficult time. But yet the thing I realized is I might be going through this difficult time, but look at all the love and the family and the friends and the community. Look at the flow that I've tapped into, not only for us and what we're going through, but I'm seeing, people are sharing the gift of telling me stories that are just so incredibly beautiful and how they're making it through these tough times. So when you say, can people see that? You either can or you can't. But my hope is that when, if I could show you, oh my God, if I could take you up to my room that I have what? The whole room is covered with these.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping, and I think it will be the case, that something will call to you. Something, like if it's kind of like that when you're ready for it, when you need it, when you in this time that we're in, if you had something, it's what art does for us. If you had something to look at that could bring you a peace and joy, then I feel like, wow, that's the greatest gift for me.
But I almost feel I need to say this listening. It's like, so I have 2 questions and 2 things. I'll say the small one first. My small question that I just want to ask. It's like, I'm used to this. I'm used to showing your work on YouTube. I've been doing this for 5 years, and we hold it up close and we hope somebody gets an idea of it. But it's so different than seeing it in person. So vastly different. But aside from that, what I want to know is, like, can you remember each one of these? And it's okay if you can't, but I'm just curious. Like, do you?
Oh yeah, I can remember when. Like, for instance, look at how the white ink plays. I can make windows, and I can do circles, and I can make all these other things.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that was my small question.
Yeah,
but my big feeling that, can you just grab a couple framed ones from like these big ones? Yeah.
Do you want to see the weavings?
No. I want you to grab those. Yep.
Okay.
So to me, what I feel like is these will be for sale, right?
Right.
But part of me wants absolutely none of them to sell. And I want to have it in a museum on a wall, because it's, to me, it's so much like, when you say the output, like, you're giving a piece of this output, a small piece of this output, so someone can have a piece of it, which is beautiful and generous, and like an oak tree, you're getting an acorn. But before they go out as little acorns, it feels very important to me to see, to not just have them, but to display them together as this life force that you're talking about. Because this is, honestly, we can speak to this because we know this, because we've been using social media, these little windows into people's lives, this little text, this little DM, this little comment, and yet all of those things, collectively are not just your story or my story, it's our story.
Yeah, we're all influenced by each other.
Exactly. And I feel like this shows that collage of our collective creativity and generosity and patience and encouraging one another. And so it's to look at them and go, oh, which one do I want, is not the way to approach it at all. And I sometimes approach it like that. It's a
body of work.
It's a body of work, but it's like standing under a waterfall with a cup and saying, and getting the cup and going, oh, I have a cup of the waterfall. But it's really, this is alluding to the waterfall. It isn't the waterfall, but it is of it. It's the life force.
Right. And, when I was doing these, and, and there will be many of them to make a large installation. I don't, all of them would be incredible. But they're like a quilt, like a very, very, very large quilt they make an impact when they're all together. There's no question about that. And maybe we'll just lay them out.
It's just an element of trust to the whole process. You've made them, and whether or not they are received as individual blessings and offerings, or they do some sort of formal viewing, it doesn't matter. It's out of our hands in a way. And it also feels kind of feminine in that there's so much that women make that is made and used and put into the everyday and not put into the, I'm not saying woe is women about it.
No, not at all.
It's not a bad thing. It's a heroism of the daily.
Well, yes, it is. And I think this body of work is testimony to, I needed a lot of anxiety reduction, to put it mildly. And so I have gotten the benefit of creating these pieces. And believe me, it was such a good thing for me to do. And now, there's a part of me that goes, I'm so very grateful to have this gallery night at the Good Day Shop, because it's like a small step into where these, I think it's going to take time for these to make their way out into the world.
Yeah. But it is so fascinating that you have, it's like art is like Kali, which I don't know if you know this story, but there would be poison in the world, some sort of monster in the world, and you could chop off its head and the heads would regrow. You could do whatever. There was no defeating it. And Kali came along and she drank the monster's blood and digested it and turned herself blue. And that's how she, from my understanding, forgive me if I got that wrong, but that's how she transformed it. And you took your anxiety and transformed it through art. You lived it and worked with it.
I did it. And the paintings themselves were gratitude, joy, and beginner's eye and childlike rediscovering or discovering. Right. So the paintings themselves, these little, they came out of just a pure creative joy. Yeah. Just pure creative joy.
Well, this completely reminds me of like the gift of being your age, because it's what everything I've understand is it's one thing to be childlike and innocent and full of joy, but then you have experience, you have adult life, and you have that, which is you taking all of these, and then you have not knowing, just being and moving forward. Yes, you survived cancer, and then now you're in another era of time and what's going on about our world. And then, as I'm going to say this with respect, as a crone, you take those things and cut them up and in and it's a joy that's a wise joy, and reassemble them.
Yeah, it's my just innate knowing, because I have made so many quilts, because it's not just this, the 4 patch, this is a 25 patch. I've done weavings. I've done, I'm playing around with triangles now, all the different elements, geometric elements.
And personally,
the circle.
I'm seeing how gorgeous. I didn't really realize there was one circle in each of them. But
that's the pillow.
Yeah, well, I know that, but that's not what I was going to say. They look like little love messages of the earth. They look like little earths to me. Like when I look at this one and I look at this, they all look at, you can't see on the camera. You just really
they're a part of a painting, and you just.
But I'm just going to show you another one, because each one of them feels like, a little, you said that recently you read something that reminded you of where, and you can share that book with what you're reading and what you read.
This is the Book of Alchemy, a creative practice for an inspired life. But her chapter 4 on seeing, this is describing the creative process. I've learned over the last decade that creative work comes in 4 seasons. There is a season of ideating and researching, figuring out the form something should take, dreaming about what could become. There's a season of actually making the thing, the Anne Lamott butt in chair phase, to quote her, how to write, butt in chair. there is a season of putting the work into the world, letting it fly so it can go out and find the person who needs it most at the moment they need it the most. Then there is the fallow season, when you're in between projects, when you're not sure what you'll create next, if anything, and where you must give yourself grace as you become a different person with different questions, ideas, and concerns.
Mm-hmm.
And what struck me was this process that I've been going through as kind of a two-faced, the season of putting the work into the world, letting it fly so that it can go out and find the person who needs it most at the moment they need it the most. So I feel like this project, the idea of this project and the learning to do watercolor and all that came to me when I needed it the most. As like it filled my days with such joy. Then this cutting it up and putting it back together again and making this part of the work was when I needed it the most, the soothing aspect of it, the calming, the anxiety reducing. And the other part is now letting it fly out to do the same work, to fly out to find the person that needs it or, at this particular moment in their life. And that would be the greatest, that's such a great joy, that idea that, it's part of why these are so important to me. Because these small pieces are so accessible. They're plexiglass frames, they're light, they can go anywhere. They can be something, they're very accessible for people to have. They form, great things when they're lined up together. I mean, you can make a quilt out of them. But I guess what it is it's a small piece that you can get that same calming, like what's happening in this landscape, the landscape of the lines going round and round. I mean, I just think there's something very...
Well, they remind me very much, I guess what you're saying is it kind of reminds me of wholesome food that's grown from wholesome soil, where the animals are treated kindly and they put their manure on and the plants, the roots pull down the carbon dioxide and the whole cycle of living and being. Well, creativity has its whole cycle like this, and this is a wholesome, zero ego, all, just in service of enlarging yourself.
Yeah, well, because when you say, minus ego, it's just even, that is so true, because these are a little kid's drawing, you know how your children will come to you at the end of the day and go, look what I made. Nobody cannot love what that child made. It's just so, and that's what this was, is like, I'm doing it. I'm finally painting. Look what the brush did today. So I mean, those are all in those pieces.
We show this all the time, but I just think it's very interesting because it's Mother's Day, and I have my bird bracelet on, and this is your grandmother who was your creative, like.
Oh, yeah.
She was the one out in front of you being creative and living that life, and filling you with that sense of like absolute love and that you're cherished. And that makes me want to go on to say, like, again, I would love it if you would talk about returning to this as well, because to me, this speaks, this to me, I'm going to tell you what this says to me, is you were making this in Madison while I was making this in my new home. And, here they are, just completely...
Oh, I know.
They completely speak to each other, and I was like, see how...
Yeah.
And that sense, too, is one of these senses. This is not out of ego. This is like shared life force.
It is. And it was just, like...
You visited
Well, I dreamed this pillow. It was so funny. I woke up one morning and I had this vision of like, I had been making these 25 patch, these, for so long. And then I kind of went like, what about if I did it in fabric?
Right, and this is like back to kindergarten for me. Remember when I would make the colors and the grids in kindergarten? And then you needlepoint them?
Yeah, so this was like, and it was much more difficult than you'd imagine because my fabrics are not arranged like this anymore. And so I went in there and I'm going like, it was so inspired finding special
fabrics
pieces
that
look like watercolors, so that they would, and finding just the circle that would bring in the color on the other ones.
And the first thing I saw were my pajamas I got these were a wedding gift from my sister. These were like fancy men's pajamas.
Oh, they're just beautiful, and the fabric was so soft.
Yes, and then I thought it was so wonderful to realize that Macy had sent you a whole package of decorator fabrics, and then here they show up in this pillow years later,
And this was, you were off shopping. I think you were with Debbie Korb when you got that and brought it back for me.
Yeah, at Brooklyn General, I'm sure. And this is a skirt I sewed and a skirt I never sewed.
Yeah, and this is from the Circa Fabric Sarah lady that I love so much.
We call her dealer. Yeah.
So they
and Ace and Jig is
Ace and Jig.
The
little scraps.
Yes, and Ace and Jig and my mom need to get together one of these days. And then I don't know. Obviously, you can see.
Well, and what was so funny is that I was trying.
Sorry.
It's okay. I wanted to. I just wanted to get this pillow done before, because I'm sure you all understand that when the idea comes to you in your sleep, if you don't act on it right then, it'll be gone. It's like off it goes, poof, and then you wouldn't have it. So I stopped everything I was doing for 2 days, because I, cutting this up, putting it back together again, whenever you're creating something for the first time, it's always a little bit tricky, even though it's very simple. And then I hand quilted it, and it was so cute because I get all this done, and I made a pillow envelope, and and then I'm going like, I need a really nice, because I wanted to have this for the Good Day shop. I wanted to, they had told me to bring in some of your quilt things, and I thought, oh, what better thing to bring in than something that relates to the paintings that I'm going to be sewing there. And so I wanted to get this done, and then I'm going like, oh, Jackie still loves some of her throw pillows up on her bed. So I went up and got that, and it was just perfect fit, and it's just perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, they're really nice.
Perfect everything. And then when she saw it, I was like, is that my pillow? And I said, yeah. And it was just funny because she was sitting there, and I could see her shawl. I could see her across.
Oh, yeah, because I also have to say, I'm wearing a skirt from the Good Day Shop.
Oh, I know, from the Good Day Shop, and the faded denim, and everything, just like she just looked like she was in a composition, a
life composition.
And it was like, and I've been to her new residence, and there's a beautiful sofa, and I thought, I'm going to give this to Jackie. And it was so fun because it was so spontaneous. So as soon as I'm done with the Good Day Shop, she can take this home to Iowa, and she'll have
my own pillow.
Your own pillow.
Yeah.
Your own pillow returned with a cover on it.
Yeah. And we're sitting here, and I see the picture. I'm going to just, I see the picture of your mother and your family, and I see the painting of you as a little girl. We're in your bedroom. I can even see in the camera the Grandma Johnson's quilts, all your fabrics.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
The
hexagons.
I can see the hexagon
the
series.
Circle.
I can see the circle series. I can see your
Grandma Johnson's chair and Grandma Alice's little table. Yeah, I am such a...
So it's an offering, and these will be available at the Good Day Shop. We will be there Friday.
May 16th.
May 16th.
From 5 to 8 in the future. One step at a time.
One step at a time. Okay, so if you want them at this point, come to the Good Day Shop. It's just such a enriching thing to be able to connect with people all around the world.
I know. I think of the friends, and I'm going to pick on Amy today because, of course, we had already mentioned her, and she has a beautiful
Amy
shawl,
Pelko.
Amy Pelko, and she has a new shawl
The
pattern
shawl.
out. And she put a picture up with she and her grandmother, and it was the two of them are in different versions of the shawl, the dancing shawl. And we had through the internet, and the fates being what they were, this beautiful Scottish woman has been in this very house. And that would never have happened if, and it was just such a, I consider her such a dear friend, and that was thanks to this community. And I don't know.
Well, I will say I've moved to a new place where I know no one, and I feel buoyed and befriended and like energized and strengthened by my people I've met through social media that aren't there with me physically, but are in my imagination. And
I'm another person to call out, and I can't remember, but Wendy from Germany, I love her. I love her. I connect with her. Her photography is probably some of the most beautiful photography on the internet.
I know Wendy from Germany. You'll have to show me.
We'll share that with you, and
Okay.
it's like my pompadour or something. I can't remember exactly. Sorry, Wendy, you just flow through my stories, and you're one of my highlights. And I just go like, I would feel like if ever I was in Germany, I would call her up and I would say, oh my goodness, Wendy, I'm so close. Can we get together for coffee or something? Because, that gift of her sharing her artistic talent with all of us.
Well, and Charlene is flying in from, Bainbridge Island.
Right.
To come to Sally's show on Friday, and I would have known her if it weren't for knitting.
Right.
So
that's what I think, and I think it's important to say. I think the community, by far and away, is so positive that, when you get too far, you look at some of the stuff that's going on in the world and realize, yuck, that's terrible. But yet there is such good-hearted people who are not, as the woman at the farmer's market was saying, that we have more in common than we have pulling us apart. And, the humanity of that. And to try to keep reaching out and saying,
But I do feel that you are such a gift and blessing. And I feel so incredibly, grateful that you're my mother. And I love being able to share you.
Well, thank you, because I just, it's part of what, I talk about that in my creation, is that I don't think I could do any of this without the loving eyes that shine back to me and say, wow, I love that, or, so it's a circular, it's an expanding, it's more like a spiral that goes out like that. Just wonderful.
So wherever you are in your creative process, the 4 phases of it, like somebody I know and love very much right now, a young man, he might be in phase 4 where he needs to just give himself grace because he's in a transition time. And God bless him,
And those are tough when we've all been there, and it's very tough.
And so, but right now, I love that. I have to admit, I love the connection to the birds, and that you're in the letting your work fly, because flight is one of the most sublime and gorgeous, rapturous things to put your attention to.
Yes, and it's just, I wrote that quote into I do a standard painter's journal. It's I don't do it daily, but I paint pages and then I write on them the next day. And I had that quote in there, and then I was testing a pen out, and I just said, let it fly, and put some flying geese, off. And it's just that simple brushstroke of that, because the flying geese metaphor in in my quilting has always been that you never know when the last time when you're going to see the geese fly away and not be there when they come back.
Oh,
right?
Like
So
that's mortality?
That's
Human
mortality, the flying geese.
Wow.
And so I have that in my 9/11 quilt, the flying geese going off. I always think of my grandmother, the people that I don't have in my life anymore on this plane. So flying geese are and so I've started doing a little bit of playing around with these squares and cutting them up and making flying geese. So we'll see where that goes, but that's next week or the week after or whatever. Unless I get up and I can't put it down.
Yes. Well, okay. Well, it's busy times.
Oh, yes. And it's happy, happy spring, happy fall, if that's your case.
Just love the people in your life that are near and dear and far away.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
spending
much.
time with us. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.